Vi sitter här på den näst sista dagen av Mid-Season Invitational och vi sitter med ingen mindre än Riot Games egna helt ansvarig för e-sport Nick Allen. Hi Nick.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, it's all good. Enjoying Tallahassee?
Yeah, Tallahassee. It's really hot, actually. I think you were talking about it being hot too, yeah. But it's really beautiful here.
Yeah. A lot of people with many Twitter followers called Travis had quite a few opinions about Tallahassee as a venue for an international event of this scale. So like overall, like what were the reasons for maybe going here since it wasn't the obvious choice?
Yeah, whenever we do an event like this, there's a lot of logistical planning that goes into an event. And a big part of that is, there's a lot of different stuff. One is the tech requirements that are necessary for us to run an event of this scale with all of the internet challenges and all of the, again, logistical challenges that come with that. Tallahassee also has a ton of players in like the greater area, and it's rather accessible for those players too. People are coming in from the south, coming in from Florida, coming in from the East Coast. So we wanted to provide an opportunity for those fans to come out. And we've actually never done an event in the Southeast, and so we wanted to hit up this area too at some point. So it sort of hit up all of those different criteria that we wanted.
Are you satisfied with the results so far? Like obviously the event's still ongoing, but like what do you think, like in contrast to the like All-Stars in Shanghai like 2 years ago, you know, how does this compare?
It's really good. I think this is the first time that we've been able to take this event and make it really about competition, purely competition, versus some of these other things like the All-Star side of things. And we're going to be doing something later in the year to sort of hit on that. But ultimately, it's hyper competitive. I think a lot of the fans wanted TSM, you know, the home team, to be more successful. Unfortunately, they didn't make it out of the group stage, so that's a little disappointing for them. But ultimately, the crowd is crazy. Everyone's having a lot of fun, and Tallahassee is, again, like a beautiful place. So it seems like the fans are having a good time.
I mean, when you talk about the competition, then like I guess one of the biggest talks aside from TSM going out was obviously like the two bugs that occurred yesterday in the Fnatic versus SKT game. And I mean, obviously, like, what's the requirement like, and how do Riot go about like investigating a situation like that? Because obviously the players are supposed to pause and like report it, of course, but like even after like I just read that even after you had, you know, officially confirmed that like we won't be replaying the game, you're still investigating it. So like what does that mean, and like how come the responsibility may be on the players and maybe not the admins, you know, and the referees, like you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. So just to clarify on our process, and we educate all the teams on this, if they think a bug has happened or there's been some issue, we really encourage them to pause the game, and we generally let them know like there's not going to be any penalties if you pause the game. Just pause and let us investigate. If they don't pause, it's hard for us to verify, because actually the process is they pause, we backstage, the referees along with our tech team verify if the bug actually happened, to make sure that they're not just like, you know, throwing up the bug flag and just trying to get a remake. We need to make sure that it happened, and if we have proven that it was a bug and we're able to figure that out, then we will offer the team a remake. Ultimately, the reason we offer the team a remake is because in the case of yesterday, right, Fnatic was actually in an advantageous position even after the bug happened, right? So we don't want to come in as administrators and force a remake on the game, especially if the team that was disadvantaged by the bug is actually in a better position. So I think the game was pretty close yesterday, but if you imagine a bug happening and Fnatic being up 10k gold, and we as administrators come in like we're going to remake the game, they probably wouldn't like that very much, right? So there's a lot of discussion about like heat of the moment. It's hard to pause, and ultimately, again, we do encourage the players to pause the game if there is a bug, but we do want to put the responsibility on the team to make the decision, to the players to make the decision whether or not they're going to want to remake. Because if they're way up, again, we come in, we're like, hey, we're remaking the game. Like, we're way up. We're like, what the heck, right? So, and what we're currently actively talking about right now, and based on some of the feedback, is how does the coach play into this? And our rules are still evolving to the coach role in our league, which is relatively new, which came in this last split. Ultimately, we don't want to give the we don't want to give the coach part of the decision of the remake because they're backstage watching the game and they're going to have information that the team doesn't necessarily have, right? So like the team's up 10 kills, right? They think they're winning, but they're actually down 5k gold, right? It's going to be hard for the players themselves to know that, but the coach backstage might know that and might be like, we're remaking instantly, let's go, right? So we want to remove them from the equation, but what we're thinking about is like, can the coach pause potentially? And we need to sort of figure that out because I think that can also have some strategic problems with the game too.
I mean, like you said, that obviously your rules are evolving and everything, but like something I'm a bit interested in is like how do you handle discrepancies perhaps in rulings in the past? Because like many people remember like back in 2014 when the Gambit versus SK game had to be replayed after an admin took the decision like that an Aatrox bug was in effect and the game had to be replayed. So like you release an apology for that, I'm pretty certain. And like, how do you then like when you have to deal with a situation like that, and then like when these other bug sort of situations perhaps appear, like how do you then go into them? Like how does your policy change towards stuff like that? Like, you know.
Yeah, so that was a very interesting situation, and our two things have evolved over time. One, our rules and how we address bugs continues to be more and more refined, but also the way that in which we empower and educate players continues to also evolve and improve. And so like part of our rundown, and again for this event and any international event, in the LCS as well, is we, again, highly encouraging players to pause if there's any sort of bug situations. That was a situation where things were a little bit unclear and policy wasn't being followed. So when we do make decisions like this, we immediately look at precedent, we look back at previous decisions and how they've been handled, and we haven't made optimal decisions in the past, and we continue to make better and better ones, and we will hopefully continue to evolve and improve in our decision making. So we try to be consistent and we try to make the best decisions possible, and as we learn more about how our players interact with bugs, we also learn how we should be interacting and offering remakes and how we should, again, be addressing those bugs too.
Maybe like outside of the LCS and like outside of the Rift, it's obviously like the production value and like everything about the LCS itself as a product is obviously just getting more and more professional, more and more impressive, like as as time progresses. But like sometimes it seems as if teams like or organizations that play, they're still in, because esports is still such a niche thing that it seems like they aren't perhaps adapting perfectly to the like big business mindset that it seems like the LCS is introducing. So like do you ever feel like they are developing in the same pace that maybe Riot is trying to take the LCS, or do you think that like there's still a lot of education to do with both like all the owners, organizations and the players, That's a great question. I think as the LCS continues to grow, as esports continues to grow, more and more people want to come in to be involved, right? And a lot of those people have more resources than others that can come in and offer players more money, can offer better living situations and all these different things. So I think overall the professionalism and the resources continues to grow and expand, and we're seeing this not only in the LCS but globally in the international wildcard regions too. They're starting to really level up. Turkey has like really expanded and grown in their league and how they develop, how they have been developing. I think there are some teams that are still learning how to sort of exist and be successful in the space. I think if you look at teams like TSM and Cloud9, they really market themselves very well. They have a barrage of sponsors. They just have they're just quite successful. Other teams are still learning how to utilize their success and their involvement in the LCS. So I think for some people they're there, or they're almost there, and then for other teams they're still figuring it out. And as the LCS continues to have relegation and promotion, right, and these new teams and this new blood comes into the league, we're going to see more and more teams trying to figure out and be more successful. Perhaps the biggest change for the LCS in 2015 was obviously that you redid the entire format so that aside from introducing a new team, the bottom of the table team will automatically get relegated, and the most highly rated challenger team will come in, and just the addition of best of fives all the way throughout the playoffs. Like, of course, it's easy to just say, why didn't you have that to begin with? This is great, but what did you feel like you had to like what made you actually implement it this many seasons after after 4 splits perhaps, like what reached the conclusion of like we're going to do it now, and like why didn't you implement some of this stuff earlier,
And this is specifically for auto promotion, auto relegation?
No, like the entire,
like
exactly. Of course, I understand it's also a massive overhaul, but like, you know, so I mean, like, why did you choose to like do, okay, we're doing everything now, and maybe not like introduce something like piecemeal?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've always had a long list of priorities and the things that we've wanted to do, and we want to get like a lot of the fundamentals right first, right? We wanted to make sure that our playoff structure was solid and developing well. We wanted to make sure that our league infrastructure and how we interact with teams was in a good place too. And as we've had those fundamentals developed and kind of figured out for the most part, we can start adding these pieces in, like coaches, for example, right? Like we had a good team structure, like 5 players, subs seem to be in an okay place, and we're gonna hopefully do more and more to improve that. Like I think it's time that we can add official coaches into the mix, bring them on stage, and encourage teams to utilize this additional figure on their team for better strategic purposes. With auto promotion, auto relegation, for example, that's a situation where we needed the Challenger Series to be in a decent state, where we were feeling comfortable with auto promoting a team out of Challenger into the LCS. And we're seeing a lot of teams coming out of Challenger and being really successful, especially in Europe, where we saw Unicorns of Love and H2K, right, the 2nd, 3rd place. So the Challenger Series is creating and is promoting these really awesome, strong teams. And so with that in mind, we were feeling more comfortable, like if a team gets auto promoted out of the Challenger Series, it's probably going to be a pretty good team overall. So again, it's sort of prioritizing what we want to do and making sure that we have the foundation and the infrastructure in place before we continue to add on these additional pieces.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe to like round it all off, I think that you were obviously in Katowice 2 months ago when the IEM World Championships went off and TSM won and everything, and I was just, when you were there then at one of these third-party events still, that was, I mean, that's essentially where the lifeblood is in every other esport, like, and Riot has obviously taken a completely different direction with the LCS, where you control every aspect of it, and you know, you run the league, and you know, that's, how did it feel being at an event like that, you know, that's run by different organizers that maybe has different ways to run production, with seeding, with brackets, with rules and everything? Like, how did it feel, like, how do you feel looking at an event like that? And do you think that third-party organizations still, like, have a room for the top LCS talent, or do you want to still, you know, keep the product with Riot, which is, like, well, of course it's in your interest, but like, how do you feel about the massive third-party tournaments?
Gotcha. IEM Katowice was awesome. They've really continued to level up and evolve in the same way that we have over the years. Their stage was amazing. The structure and the team participation was great too. So going there, it's really quite refreshing to see this completely different approach to how like these major League of Legends tournaments are run. Ultimately, what we want is high quality events for our pros to be participating in, right? So we have to keep a close eye on exactly what they're going to be playing and competing in, and IEM is one of those organizations that hits the bar of like, this is like a top tier event, it's awesome, and we feel good that when our pro players are exposed on that broad of a level, that the quality of the event will meet the expectations of the players in the LCS. So that's really like where the bar is set for us, is like we just want to make sure that there are top tier events, or that when these events happen and pros participate, that it's at a high quality bar, and so there's definitely a place in the ecosystem for these types of events. The other thing too, right, is the LCS feeds in the World Championship. There's a lot on the line, right, and a lot of these careers are based around the LCS. And when you go away and participate in these tournaments, there's a cost, right, and it's like a preparation cost for that tournament. You come back and you're very tired as well. So we also wouldn't want just an abundance of these types of events for teams to go and sort of like wear themselves out. So it's kind of finding a balance between the two things, and ultimately that's how we've landed on like IEM as a circuit where the pros can go and they can participate.
All right. I guess I could just thank for the conversation, as I don't have much more to add. Any final words?
Just thanks for coming out, guys. I hope you enjoyed Florida, and shout out to all the fans that came out and are watching.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.